Welcome as VIA Public Media presents Decision 2019, the Pennsylvania 12th Congressional District Debate, live from the Sordoni Theater at the VIA Public Media Studios. Our moderator, VIA Radio's Larry Voitko.
Good evening. I'm Larry Voitko. Welcome to a debate between the candidates competing in the special election to represent Pennsylvania's 12th district in the U.S. House of Representatives. We have a live audience in the Sordoni Theater here at the VIA Public Media Studios, and they have been instructed to applaud, as you just heard, only at the beginning and again at the conclusion of the debate. In addition to VIA, this debate is being broadcast on WPSU in State College and on the Pennsylvania Cable Network. Pennsylvania's 12th congressional district is located in central and northern Pennsylvania and stretches from Potter County in the northwest, east to Susquehanna County, and south through Clinton and Wyoming counties to Perry County at the district's southern tip. In November 2018, incumbent Congressman Tom Marino was elected to another term in the House. However, Mr. Marino announced his resignation soon afterward, leading to the need for this special election, which will coincide with Pennsylvania's primary on Tuesday, May 21st. The candidates vying to fill this open seat to represent District 12 are Republican Fred Keller and Democrat Mark Friedenberg. Republican Fred Keller is a member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives for District 85. Since 2010, he has represented Snyder and Union counties. Prior to his service in the state legislature, Mr. Keller enjoyed a 25-year career at Conestoga Wood Specialty, serving as plant operations manager at the company's Beavertown facility. While building his career at Conestoga, Fred started his own successful small business as a general contractor and managing properties. Mr. Keller has been married to his wife, Kay, for 34 years. They have 2 adult children, Jamie and Freddie, and 2 granddaughters. Democrat Mark Friedenberg is a native of Northeast Philadelphia and a graduate of Penn State University's College of Information Sciences and Technology. At Columbia University Law School, he studied cyber law and internet privacy. After graduation, he stayed in New York to practice intellectual property and securities litigation for large law firms. In 2012, he joined the faculty of his alma mater, Penn State, where he's an assistant teaching professor of cybersecurity and cyber law at the main campus, and serves on the faculty senate. Mr. Friedenberg married his high school sweetheart, Becky, and they have 2 daughters, Claire and Molly. VIA welcomes both candidates as they field questions from our panelists. Laura Lee Jansen has been on the staff of the Williamsport Sun-Gazette since 1984, when she began as a reporter. Laura rose through the ranks to take the helm of the newsroom and now serves as editor-in-chief. Prior to joining the Sun-Gazette, she served 4 years in the U.S. Air Force as a B-52 flight simulator operator and technician. She's earned degrees in journalism from Williamsport Area Community College and from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Mark Lawrence is the program director of News Radio 1070, WKOK Sunbury. A Penn State grad, Mark has been a broadcast journalist since 1985, working at WHLM in Bloomsburg, WRAK in Williamsport, and now for over 25 years at WKOK. In addition, he serves on the AP Pennsylvania Associated Press Media Editors Board and has taught at Penn College, Susquehanna University, and Bloomsburg University, and serves on the Greater Susquehanna Valley YMCA Sunbury Board. Ann Danahy is a reporter at WPSU in State College. Prior to that, for nearly 12 years, she worked as a reporter at the Center Daily Times in State College, covering issues including the impact of natural gas development on communities. She received her degrees from Antioch College and from Penn State, and currently hosts a Q&A program for Center County's Government and Education Access Station and teaches an online grammar class at Penn State. VIA thanks these distinguished panelists for participating in this discussion. Now, the format for this hour-long debate has been agreed to by both campaigns. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement. Responses to the questions by our panelists will be held to 90 seconds. However, at the discretion of the moderator, an additional 30 seconds may be allotted to each candidate for rebuttal. All times will be strictly enforced. All the questions are devised by the individual panelists, each of whom submitted a series of questions to VIA Public Media for review prior to tonight's debate. I, as moderator, also have the option to ask a question. Now, we move now to the opening statements. As determined by a coin toss held earlier this evening, Mark Friedenberg will begin. Mark, 2 minutes.
First, I'd like to thank WVIA for organizing tonight's debate, and I'd also like to thank everybody who's watching both here in the studio and at home. Most of all, I'd like to thank my wife, Becky. Honey, thank you so much for going on this journey with me. I'm so glad that voters have this opportunity to hear from both candidates. Debates have a long tradition in American politics, and the voters deserve to hear as many of them as possible. I'm running for Congress, and I ask for your vote on May 21st to protect the values that Becky and I are teaching our daughters. I believe that we are called upon to leave behind a better world for our kids than the ones we inherited from our parents. That means we need to move forward, make progress, and think about the big picture. It means that we need to protect programs that help every American live and retire with dignity: Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And last but not least, I believe that America is a country that is worth investing in. That means that we need to invest in critical infrastructure like roads and bridges, protecting our power grid, invest in cybersecurity, and invest in projects like the levee in Williamsport. And it means investing in people. I know that you all agree with me that every American deserves an equal chance to succeed, regardless of the zip code where they were born or how much money their parents have. So we need to invest in primary through higher education and ensure that everyone has high-speed internet access. That will help us stop the brain drain that is holding back our economy. These are the values that we share and are passing on to our children. But the problem is that the politicians we send to Harrisburg and Washington have failed us. They have no leadership and they have no vision. That's why we can't stand career politicians. I decided to run for Congress after looking at my wife Becky and our two daughters and realizing that this is the thing that I could do to best bring about that vision of a better world for my kids.
Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. Representative Keller.
Thank you. And it's my pleasure to be here this evening to discuss what I've learned over 10 years of serving people in Union and Snyder counties and the campaign across the 12th Congressional District. And that is that America is the greatest country on the face of the earth. Our founders, when they laid out our republic, were so wise. And that vision was paid for by every generation of veterans since. I was that poor kid that grew up poor. And a lot of people say they were poor and they didn't know it. Well, to tell you the truth, we lived in a place that had no running water and no electricity. And I can't imagine how poorly my father felt when he was down on his luck and had to put a Korean War veteran had to put his family in that building. But he went out and he worked. And he taught us the values of respect, hard work, and education, and not letting anybody define you. Most of all, not your government. It's for us to define our government. And through those values, after I graduated from high school, as was said earlier, I went on to a career at Conestoga Wood Specialties, starting in the factory, later managing that factory. Also starting my own successful small business. In addition to that, my wife and I raised our family right here in the Valley. Right here in this district, we raised our family. And those are the values, and that is the success that's available to every American, so long as we define our government and we don't let our government define us. We can't afford to go and have things like the Green New Deal and socialized medicine that take choices away from people rather than letting them define what they want to have. There's a stark difference here on May 21st. A person that believes that it's your country, that it's your values that should be sent down to Washington, D.C. I got reelected 4 times overwhelmingly after being elected in 2010 because I kept my word and I did exactly what I said I would do. And that was take the values of the people of the 85th District to Harrisburg. And if I'm given a chance, I intend to do the same in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Those are the opening statements in tonight's debate. We move on to the questions. The first question will come from Laura Jansen of the Williamsport Sun-Gazette, and it will be directed first to Mr. Keller.
Good evening, candidates. I want to thank you for participating in tonight's debate. Let's start with health care. I'd like to know what each of your views are from the Affordable Care Act to other ideas that we've heard about, such as Medicare for All.
Okay. First and foremost, anything we do with health care has to cover pre-existing conditions. Secondly, we need to make sure that we have transparency and that we have competition. That's a difference in our campaigns. My opponent had campaigned on Medicare for All, socialized single-payer health care. And let me explain what that is. All you have to do is think about Charlie Gard or Alfie Evans in the UK, where they have that system. They were said that they weren't going to live by the doctors. Then you had a government judge refuse to let those parents take their kids to another country. Charlie Gard could have come to America. And then they made them disconnect their children from life support. My son, when he was 3, and he's sitting in the audience here tonight, when he was 3, had a head injury. He was on life support for 27 days. The doctors told us multiple times that he isn't going to live and that we should disconnect life support. But because we had control over his health care, not a government bureaucrat, he is 27 years old and works for that hospital that saved his life. And I will make sure, if I'm elected to Congress, that you don't have a government that is going to determine what level of care you get or whether or not you get care at all, should you need it. My position is, first and foremost, cover pre-existing conditions, transparency, and competition.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Mr. Friedenberg.
Fred, I'm glad to hear that your son is doing well and that you had a choice. But we still have 20 million Americans in this country without health care. They don't have a choice at all. What options do they have? We've made steps forward. The Affordable Care Act did things like actually guarantee protections for people with pre-existing conditions. That's critical for somebody like my mother, who's had breast cancer twice and now a double mastectomy and would be uninsurable without those protections from the Affordable Care Act. But there's a lot more that we can do to make sure that we cover more people, bring down the costs of premiums and deductibles, and especially lower the cost of pharmaceuticals. That's one of the things I hear about most. I hear too many stories about people whose insulin goes from $3 a month to $300 a month. I'd like to offer an option for people to buy into the popular Medicare program that keeps costs down. It's got great bargaining power and ought to be able to negotiate prices, including for pharmaceuticals. But the fact of the matter is that my opponent's record on healthcare is abysmal. He wrote a letter to the governor asking that we not expand the Medicaid program in Pennsylvania. That covered 750,000 Pennsylvanians. It provides treatment for 71,000 people who are addicted to opioids, and it's the nursing home payment program for Pennsylvania. The Republican Congress voted 60 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act. They had absolutely no alternative in place. So we shouldn't believe them now when they say that they're going to be able to do things like provide protections for people without pre-existing conditions. They have no plan.
Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg.
Mark, I would like...
You want a rebuttal? You have 30 seconds.
Mark, I would like to set the record straight. The Corbett administration came up with Health EPA that was approved by the Obama administration that I supported, and it gave people choice. That's what it gave them. Governor Wolf took away that choice and gave them the socialized Medicare single-payer system. You're talking about coverage and not care. You're talking about covering people and people not getting care. So let's be honest with the people and my record, which is very good when it comes to standing up for people having the decisions in their own life.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Let's move on to the next question. Mark Lawrence will be addressing, and the question will be first answered by Mr. Friedenberg.
Mark, let's talk about outside money, PAC money, sometimes they call it, nefarious funds that come in and have a big influence in Washington, D.C. If you're elected, how will you be transparent to show that some funding is coming in to support future campaigns and so on? And then, how will you show that you are closely representing what your constituents want and not what the outside forces want?
You know, the corrupting influence of corporate PAC money on our politics is really devastating. I think it's part of the reason that people are so upset with government. And what we need to do is make sure that we overturn Citizens United. I support a constitutional amendment to overturn the Citizens United decision, get rid of this unlimited corporate spending that is warping our politics, that is making it no longer representative of what we want and of what we really need. Now, personally, I've pledged never to take a dime of corporate PAC money. I want people to know that I'm making decisions in their interests and not for special interests. And I think that's a really important part of it. In terms of how I can make sure that I'm representing the district and their needs, I've pledged that I'm going to hold an in-person, unscripted, live town hall in every county across the district each year, making sure that I'm able to hear the people's concerns. I don't expect everybody to agree with me, but a really important part of the job is making sure that you can listen to people, that you can understand them, and that you can show that you're listening to them and understand them. I think that's an important role that debates play as well. It's disappointing to me that this is going to be, it appears, the only one that we have. I think this is a really important opportunity for voters to be able to see the distinction between us and see who's better able to represent their interests.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. Mr. Keller.
Thank you. I appreciate that question. When you talk about campaign finance, first off, corporations can't donate to campaigns. PACs can. And PACs represent people all around the country. If you're a teacher, there's the PSEA. If you're a nurse, there's the Pennsylvania State Nurses Association. What happens is when people allow money to influence their decisions, that's incorrect, and that should not happen. There's things like Act Blue that donated millions of dollars into elections out in Ohio in the special election. In fact, my opponent knows about Act Blue because that's where he got a lot of his money for the first quarter filing. But let's talk about my record, because that's what I have. My record is my word, and it's what I've done over the last almost 9 years as a state representative. And that is, and Mark knows this, I've been on his show, I've been accessible, I've listened, I've made decisions, I haven't followed the party line. I've done what I said I'm going to do. And when I went to run for office this time, a gentleman that has known me for 25 years from the lumber business was happy to support me, and he wrote me a letter, Scott Cummings from Troy, Pennsylvania. You know what he said in his letter? He said, Fred's word is as strong as oak. And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to electing people that are going to say what they do and do what they say. It's about results and not rhetoric. My campaign, my behavior in office, my behavior my entire lifetime in the private industry has been about results. And that's what we really need to look at and take forward as we look at who would represent the 12th Congressional District.
Mr. Friedenberg has asked for a rebuttal. Mr. Friedenberg, you have 30 seconds.
My opponent does get a lot of support from PACs, including the Club for Growth. It's a pretty radical group that is dedicated to destroying Social Security as we know it. You don't have to take my word for it. It's right there on their website. They want to take your Social Security, your retirement income, turn it into something that they can gamble with and try to make a profit from. They cleared the field for him to get the nomination for this seat. They're supporting his campaign. He proudly displays their endorsement. That's exactly the kind of PAC that I'm talking about.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. We have to move on. Ann Danahy from WPSU in State College, and she will be addressing the question first to Mr. Keller.
The 12th Congressional District is home to a number of institutions of higher education, including Penn State, and Pennsylvania students have among the highest student debt loads when they graduate. What, if anything, do you think the federal government should be doing to reduce that burden on students so they'd have to borrow less and they're less in debt?
Well, when we look at what happens with higher education, not everybody needs to go to a four-year college. So when we talk about training the workforce, we need to look at all the education that's available. We also need to look at doing some of the things like we did in Pennsylvania with the 529 plan and savings accounts for people to be able to save money tax-free. The other point we need to do is in our public school system, we need to make sure that our students are ready to go to college and aren't having to take remedial classes and pay for college credits. So let's take a look at that, and let's also take a look at some of the state institutions. And some of the professors are teaching 12 hours a week. Maybe they need to teach a few more hours a week, and we can look at a bunch of things. But what we need to first do is make sure that we show the value in every person, no matter what their job is. The only pathway to success is not a four-year degree. That's very good. In fact, I agree with it a lot. My son is a four-year graduate from Bloomsburg University. He graduated, and he's paid for his college debt, and that's great. And some people need help. There's also something we're working on in General Assembly where people could volunteer and have some of their debt forgiven based on hours of service. So there's a lot of things that we can do to help with those things. But simply just saying no debt for college and nobody having to work to pay that back, I don't think is a way that we want to go, because there's a lot of lessons to be learned in having to work hard to make sure that you succeed. So I think there's a lot of things we can do. There's a lot of things that I've done in Pennsylvania that we could use as a model for Washington, D.C. So that would be my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Mr. Friedenberg.
I don't agree that crippling debt should be a hard lesson that people need to learn. I do think that higher education, career and technical training are great investments in our people. They show, for example, an average in $1 million in increased earnings over a career versus somebody with a high school degree. I see this crippling burden that we're putting on our students in my classroom. I've had students who have to miss class because it's the only time that the food pantry on campus is open. That's how badly we have failed, that students are paying so much for school that they can't afford food. And the statistics about what it's doing to the next generation, how it's holding them back on getting married, buying a house, buying a car, are startling, and it demands immediate action. Of course, it's critical that we make sure that we have jobs available on the other side. I think one of the things that we can do is look at more loan debt forgiveness programs for people who go into public service, especially in rural communities like ours. There are so many needs that we have in healthcare and education and in government work. I think there's a great match there. I'd also like to see us look at having the federal government cover fully half the cost per year of tuition when it's need-based for students so that they can go to college if it's the right choice for them. It's a great investment in our people. It's a great investment in this district. Our universities contribute so much to this economy. And last but not least, I have to mention, we have to make sure that we're holding people like Betsy DeVos accountable and the for-profit colleges that are really driving up this debt bubble.
Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. All right, we have, you'd like a rebuttal?
I'd like to.
Sure, Mr. Keller has asked for a rebuttal. You have 30 seconds.
I did not say that college debt should be a penalty. I say that people should have some skin in the game when they go to college. So I did not say that. We also could look at some transparency there, where you would know what the four-year degree would cost, you would know what the loan to pay back would be, and that you would also know what the job placement is and the earnings. So we can look at that. And I know my opponent's talking about this, and I would challenge him and ask him if he's teaching college classes for free so some students have less debt. So let's put our money where our mouth is and do some of that stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. That brings to an end the first round of questions, so we move on to the second round. And Mark Lawrence will be beginning the second round of questions, and his question will first be answered by Mr. Friedenberg.
All right, Mark, Second Amendment. Let's talk about that, gun laws. What common sense changes in gun laws do you favor? We hear about fixing NICS. We hear about universal background checks. Senator Toomey talks about people not buying guns if they're on the no-fly list. Common sense changes in gun laws, protecting the Second Amendment, that would make us safer.
Absolutely. I'm a strong supporter of Second Amendment rights, and moreover, the Pennsylvania Constitution even goes further in protecting individual rights relating to guns. But that doesn't mean there are some common sense changes that we can make to make sure that we're keeping guns only in the hands of the good guys, keeping guns out of the hands of the bad guys. The Pennsylvania red flag law that recently passed, which my opponent voted for, and I thank him for that, I think is a great step in the right direction. We want to make sure that we're keeping guns out of the hands of domestic abusers. But the number one gun-related cause of death in the United States and in Pennsylvania is suicide. And people who have suicidal tendencies will often show signs, and those signs can be picked up by friends and family and loved ones. And so I'd like to see us put in place a system where, following a judge's involvement, following due process, we can temporarily take away somebody's guns while they potentially would pose a threat to themselves or others, and then return the gun after that mental health crisis has passed, which they almost always do. This is actually even more lenient, more flexible than Pennsylvania's current system. I think that's a common sense measure that we need to take, balancing Second Amendment rights and public health and safety.
Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. Mr. Keller.
Well, I did support some common sense legislation. It didn't deal with law-abiding citizens. It dealt with people that were convicted of breaking the law. But I want to tell you, I'm a life member of the National Rifle Association. My candidacy has been endorsed by the National Rifle Association because I do understand the value of our Second Amendment. And I have shown that I stand up and do what's right, as admitted by my opponent. But evidently his position has changed because he had posted on his website calling for classes of bans of firearms. That's different than what we're hearing here tonight. The point is that Second Amendment in our Constitution protects every other amendment we have. And we need to stop focusing on the instrument that someone uses to inflict violence on another person and focus on the actions and what they're doing. So by changing our gun laws, by doing any of those things, which my opponent has called to do, ban classes of firearms, isn't going to solve the problem. So when we look at this, we need to make sure that we protect all of your rights, not just the ones that some people want to pick and choose to do that. And Mark, you know the background checks and stuff, I gave you the state police stuff when I was on the radio, and we discussed all the checks that we already do on the state police.
I passed. I'm good.
Well, so, thank you.
All right, moving on. Our next question will come from Ann Danahy. And to answer first, Representative Keller.
The number of reported hate crimes has been on the rise, according to the most recent FBI report in November that included numbers through 2017. What do you think Congress and the President should be doing to address this?
Well, first thing I want to say is there's no tolerance for hate. That's just wrong. We're not in a country that was built on hate. We're in a country that was built on compromise. Go back to our founding documents, on respect, on recognizing everybody's ability to contribute. So hate crimes, I think that we need to start talking to people in a manner where we talk with respect and dignity and don't talk down to people and don't inflame situations on one side or the other of an issue as adults. You know, I can look at a lot of things that happen when you look at social media and you look at the television and you see what's going on around our nation. And a lot of it started by adults that have that are either from Hollywood or in politics, and they don't treat each other with respect and listen. So the first thing I think we need to do is lay down all our electronic devices and learn how to communicate a little bit first before we pick that up and send out a message that might be hateful or might treat somebody poorly. So I think there's a lot of blame to go around when you look at television, when you look at actions of people, whether it's in politics or whether it's in Hollywood or wherever it is, that treat people poorly. It all begins with us. And if we're going to do it, then we need to make sure that we start here and hold ourselves accountable first.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Keller. Mr. Friedenberg.
We have a crisis, a rising tide of white nationalism and extremism that has attacked people at their places of worship. We've had attacks at synagogues in Pittsburgh and San Diego, and people in my community have been devastated by those, as have all Americans and people around the world. These issues are not ones where we have very fine people on both sides. These are clear black and white issues. These are issues where people's rhetoric, and I'm going to in particular say the president's rhetoric saying that there are very fine people on both sides has given a green light to people who would seek to do harm. People are getting radicalized on the internet. It's on Reddit, it's on Twitter, it's on more sort of niche sites like 8chan. They're getting radicalized or they're finding each other. We need to make sure that they don't have the opportunity to use our social media platforms to broadcast themselves, to broadcast their hate. We need to make sure that the social media platforms are held accountable. But that rhetoric needs to come from the top. And we have to say, whether we like the president or not on policy, rhetoric does matter. It requires real moral leadership to say it's not okay to say that there are very fine people on both sides. We need to take a stand for what's right. We need to take a stand against white nationalism.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. All right, let's move on to the last question in round two. It's coming from Laura Jansen. And the first to answer the question will be Mr. Friedenberg.
What would you do as a member of Congress to protect our national security and promote our national defense readiness?
You know, America is the most technologically advanced country in the world, and because of that, we're also the most vulnerable to cyber attacks. You know, one of the things that we saw out of the Mueller report, if nothing else, is that our electoral system is vulnerable, not just through social media disinformation campaigns, but also attempts to get access to state and county voter rolls, and even to hack into the manufacturers of voting equipment here in the United States. Now, I'm very glad that in Pennsylvania we're in the process of upgrading our voting machines to support voter verifiable paper trails. But I also understand it's putting a significant financial burden on our counties to upgrade their machines. And I think since these are requirements that are ultimately coming from the federal government, I think the federal government needs to help to recover those costs for the counties. It's critical that we know that everybody's vote be counted and be counted fairly. Cybersecurity is critical, of course, not just for our voting systems, but also for our power grid, for our airlines, for banking, really all of commercial, all of modern American life. I think that's the area where I can contribute most, take my expertise in cybersecurity and make sure that we're making the right decisions, that we're investing wisely in our cybersecurity here for the homeland.
Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. Mr. Keller.
Thank you. The question was about our national security, which is not limited to cybersecurity, but it would be security of every person in our nation and our elections. And I'm here to say that nothing would irritate the Russians more than if we would all get together and figure out how what happened under the Obama administration doesn't happen again. And if we want to do that, part of that's infrastructure, and it goes back to making sure that we have available natural gas pipelines so that we can get our natural gas up to the New England states. Russian natural gas last year came into Boston Harbor to fuel American homes. Our allies are buying gas from people who do not share our interests. Why don't we start developing our infrastructure and become energy independent not only for ourselves, but also for our allies, and stop transferring wealth to nations that do not like us? That's one thing that will go a very, very long way in making sure we get national security. And my opponent mentioned the Mueller report. You know, there's a lot of things that are in that Mueller report, but the one thing it did said was there was no collusion on the part of the president or his campaign. So let's all get together and let's make sure we send a message over to every nation that you're not going to meddle in our elections, and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen. But as I said earlier, nothing would irritate the Russians more if we would get together and make sure we fix that problem instead of sitting here trying to delegitimize an election that took place in 2016.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. And Mr. Friedenberg has requested a rebuttal. Mr. Friedenberg, 30 seconds.
Yeah, shame on you, Fred Keller, to say that it's unimportant that we go back and look what happened in the 2016 election. We know the Russians tried to interfere in the 2018 election. We know they're going to do it in 2019. They're certainly going to do it in 2020. In fact, the director of the FBI just said last week, for Russia now, these hacking efforts are a 365-day-a-year operation. This isn't something that's political. This is something that needs to bring every American together. Our electoral security must be absolutely unquestionable.
Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. All right, we move on to round 3 of our questions, and beginning round 3 will be Ann Danahy, and she will be posing the question first to Representative Keller.
The United States continues to have an increasing debt burden. The debt broke another record this year, reaching more than $22 trillion, and the federal deficit is expected to continue to grow as a percentage of GDP. How much of a priority do you think that is? And if it is a priority, what do you think needs to be done to address it?
Well, thank you for that question. I'll tell you what doesn't need to be done, okay? And it's what my opponent, when he became his party's nominee, said were his priorities, which was the Green New Deal, which would cost $93 trillion, and Medicare for All, which would be another $23 trillion. And then he posted a video on his website saying he wanted to raise taxes on the middle class to pay for it because they have to pay their fair share. That doesn't fix it. What fixes it is making sure that we have a good, strong economy and that we train people, and there's job readiness for people in the trades, in college, and all avenues of education. And then what happens is more people participate in the workforce, more people are ready to go, and then you can afford to pay down on debt because you won't have as many people that are on the sidelines looking for work. So one thing is a strong economy, training for jobs, and also making sure that we don't invest in the kinds of programs that my opponent bragged about being excited to campaign for, which is the Green New Deal and Medicare for All, that would cost over $100 trillion. Our federal budget's like $4 trillion, or between $4 and $5 trillion, somewhere in that neighborhood. We can't afford to do that stuff. We need to be looking at policies that don't put American jobs and American workers and American families at risk by bankrupting them on things that even Nancy Pelosi says we can't do.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Mr. Friedenberg.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Fred for making my point for me. The figures that he cites for costs are absolutely absurd. It really shows a stunning lack of respect for the American voter to believe these figures that are many, many multiples of what our GDP is. It's a lot of fear-mongering. It shows weakness. It really shows a concern wanting to stick his head in the sand rather than tackling the big issues. You know, we had a GOP tax bill that was passed in December of 2017. It added $1.5 trillion to the deficit. 83% of the benefits of that went to the wealthiest Americans and to corporations. The remainder went to the working class, but those were temporary cuts. I'd like to see the middle class tax cuts become permanent. That's going to put more money into workers' pockets, more money into people's pockets, and really stimulate our economy that way. We can't let the wealthy Americans and corporations buy off politicians, get the tax laws rewritten in their favor, and keep pushing the rest of us down and down and down. We're in a cycle. This is just not working for us. We are in a winner-take-all economy right now. The winners are in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and New York and San Francisco and the big cities. And what we're seeing is in districts like ours, we're experiencing people have declining wages, but we really have brain drain where people are graduating from our schools, they leave the district, and they may not ever come back because they don't have the opportunities here. We can't let that winner-take-all economy continue. We have to make those middle-class tax cuts permanent.
Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. And Mr. Keller has requested a rebuttal. You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. It seems that my opponent has changed his position. My position was making the tax cuts permanent for the middle class. In fact, I was at Allison Crane and Rigging today, and I was also at Patton Trucking. And because of those bills, because of those tax cuts, those employees or those employers are employing more people, and they're small businesses. Those are people right here in our district that are creating good paying jobs. My opponent, in his own video, said he wanted to raise taxes on the middle class so they pay their fair share. That was on his website.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. We move on now to the next question, and it is going to be posed by Laura Jansen, and the first to answer will be Mr. Friedenberg.
What would you do as a member of Congress to protect Social Security?
Protecting Social Security is absolutely critical. You know, I mentioned earlier we added that $1.5 trillion to the deficit, and we all know what the next page in the Republicans' playbook is going to be. They're going to use it as an excuse to target programs like Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. The president's recent budget proposal called for $20 billion in cuts to Social Security and over $800 billion in cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. So we know what's coming, and it's absolutely critical that we protect Social Security. The Club for Growth, which has supported my opponent, this extremist group, is dedicated to destroying Social Security as we know it, turning your retirement savings into a slush fund. In the United States, we have a guarantee. First, we honor our promises. If you've paid into the Social Security system, that's your money. You're entitled to it. That's a promise that we made to you. And so there are some things that we can do to make the program more solvent and even to expand benefits. And one of the things that I call for is lifting the cap on payroll taxes for Social Security wages. Right now, after about $130,000 in income, the wealthiest Americans, as they earn each dollar more, don't pay into the Social Security system for that. That's not fair. They're paying a lesser percent into Social Security than the rest of us are. So I'd like to see us lift that cap.
Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. Mr. Keller.
Thank you. I appreciate the question, and I know this is one that was mentioned on the radio. Evidently, in addition to being a professor, my opponent is a mind reader because he tends to know what's in people's minds. The first thing I'm going to say is that Social Security is not an entitlement. Social Security is earned. You earned that. You paid for it. And I will do everything I can to make sure that that is safe and back for people when they retire. What happened to Social Security over the years is that politicians or people with big ideas got elected to office, not necessarily politicians, but people got big ideas, got elected to office, then they became politicians, and they came up with ideas that raided that fund for things that were important to them, not things that were important to the people they represented. And, you know, if you're concerned about your Social Security, you should be concerned about Mark Friedenberg's excitement when he became their nominee to campaign on working on the Green New Deal and Medicare for All. Those weren't about choices. The Green New Deal is about the car you drive, the house you live in, the food you eat. And the Medicare for All system is not about care. It's about control. And when I'm talking to the people of the 12th Congressional District, they don't want government controlling their lives. They don't want government telling them those things. They want to define their government. And that's a big difference in our two campaigns.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Mr. Friedenberg has requested a rebuttal. You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, we've heard these lines a number of times. It doesn't take a mind reader to know where Fred's at. In fact, I can just take a look at his record in Harrisburg and his long career there. He's voted in lockstep with his party 100% of the time, has never written any meaningful legislation, has barely sponsored any legislation. He does what he's told. And so why would we take somebody who hasn't performed well in Harrisburg and send him to Washington? He's going to move in lockstep. He's going to support those targets on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
I'll allow 30 more seconds for a rebuttal from Mr. Keller.
Again, Mr. Friedenberg got his facts wrong. I stood up and helped solar energy in Pennsylvania. That's part of the fiscal code. I worked on the transportation bill. I also did a recycling bill that helped Kelly Township, Union County. I brought money back to the district for watershed reclamation. I helped prevent a tire burner from being built in Union County. So my campaign is about results. My performance is about results, not about just trying to degrade somebody. The things I'm saying about my opponent, he actually posted on his own website.
We have to move along. Mark Lawrence has the next question.
Well, maybe you can continue this particular line of questioning. Let's talk about negative campaigning or just campaigning in general. Have you said anything about your opponent that you know is untrue? Has he said anything about you that you know is untrue? Maybe we'll end up revisiting the Social Security or the never voting against your party comment again. This idea that each candidate can say something untrue about the other.
Well,
Mr. Keller, yes.
my record, my word's as strong as oak. I've been on your show many times. I do my research. I do what is right for the people. I've never voted in lockstep with anybody. That's just false. In fact, I voted on a bill on redistricting back in 2012 with the Democrats. I was the only Republican that did it. It was a Mike Sterla bill. Okay? I have a mind of my own. That's my record. The things I bring up about my opponent, he posted the video of taxing the middle class on his own website. He recorded it. He said it. He recorded it. He posted it. Okay? Then he says, oh, it's taken out of context. No, it's off his website. It's what he said. Now, if he can't, if it's not was out of context or he didn't mean to say that, what he should have done then was looked at it before he posted it, right? And then recorded what he meant to say. But he didn't do that. So I don't say things, and anybody that knows me, and I know Mark can't answer this, but I don't say things without doing my homework and knowing the facts. That is not negative. That is simply pointing out where we stand on the issues. Mark says he's Second Amendment, but he called for a ban on certain classes of firearms. He said he wasn't for the Green New Deal. He was excited about it. Now he's different. Now he's different on the Medicare for All. I don't know what Mark Friedenberg we're going to expect to see on May 22nd.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Keller. Mr. Friedenberg.
I'll politely decline the offer from my opponent for social media assistance. That was really a pathetic way of taking just a few seconds of video out of something from a year and a half ago. You look at the entire picture. I was dead set against those huge permanent tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans and for corporations. Now, I know you were in favor of them, but I support permanent large tax cuts for the middle class. That's really going to stimulate our economy. That's going to deliver the kind of growth that we need in this district and make sure that we are able to have high-paying jobs, family-sustaining wages. That's what we need to do. I think that it's really important for us to make sure that we respect the media, the online media, the print media, TV media, radio media, and the role that they play in informing the voters of this district. That's where not only the fact-checking can happen, but things like debates like this one, where we can see where the two candidates really stand. I think that's absolutely critical.
All right. Well, we're running out of time, so I think we'll move on because we have enough time to do an entire round of questions. And so the question will be from Laura Jansen, and the first to answer will be Mr. Friedenberg.
Okay. Are you prepared to reach across the aisle and work in a bipartisan manner to effect positive change in Congress, or will you fight to the end to get the results you believe in on any given issue?
There are issues which we absolutely need to address and address immediately in this country, and we can't rely upon people's party labels being the predictor of how they're going to vote on every single issue. There are things that are far too important. I would put infrastructure and jobs at the top of that. It looks like recently there's been some forward momentum on a federal infrastructure bill. I think that's great. The devil's always going to be in the details, of course, but I know that Democrats and Republicans are willing to work together on that. President Trump campaigned on better, cheaper health care for everybody. We absolutely have a health care crisis in this country, and I think people are ready to see some common sense things be done. I'm frankly shocked it's 2019 and we don't yet have Medicare being able to negotiate prescription drug prices with pharmaceutical companies. This is something that everybody wants, and it needs to happen immediately. And then again, that idea of election security. There once was a time where both parties agreed that it was important that everybody's vote count equally. I think that's still the case. We need to make sure that our systems are secure. We need to make sure that we get as many people voting as possible. And I hope everybody turns out to vote on May 21st, including independent voters. And I would like everybody to know that I also support opening up the primary system. We need to have everybody coming out and voting in the primaries, making sure that we get candidates who better reflect our values.
Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. Mr. Keller.
The question was on working across the aisle and getting things done. And again, I know my opponents called me a longtime politician. No, I've been in the General Assembly for a little over 8 years. Elected the first time by my fellow citizens, and because I did what I said I was going to do, I kept my word, I got reelected 4 times. Now, working across the aisle, Auditor General Eugene DePasquale last year sent me a note, and he said, hey, here's what you've done with me in the General Assembly. And the note said that we have worked on many things together to make lives better for Pennsylvania's families. That's not me saying it. That's the Auditor General saying it. I've worked on him with legislation. I've worked with the governor, and I've worked with both houses, both parties in Pennsylvania General Assembly. We did pension reform. We did some things on liquor privatization. So my record of being able to reach across the aisle and get things done is very solid. The thing is, what I do is I look at stuff and I look at what's good for the district that I represent currently, and I read the bills, I do the research, and I put together a coalition to get things done. Now, I know my opponent tried to attack me on not doing anything. He hasn't dug deeply enough into what I do, okay? And the other thing I would say is there's no I in team. If you're going somewhere just to get your name on stuff and get it done, that's why things don't get done. They get done because you're part of a team to get things done and make lives better for the people you represent.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Now, Mr. Friedenberg has requested a rebuttal. You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to Fred, congratulations on getting that letter, but, that's the kind of platitude that really makes people upset with Harrisburg. It's lots of talk and not a lot of action. We're looking for, people who can actually deliver results. We're looking for somebody who is there to do the best for the district, somebody who's willing to sacrifice his or her time and energy and all of their devotion, everything they've got to this race.
Okay, let's move on. And Mr. Keller will be answering this question first. It will come from Mark Lawrence.
Well, it's just sort of a follow-up to that, not how you'll get along with both sides in Washington, D.C., but how will you listen to individuals who might be Democrats, maybe liberal Democrats. We know that conservative Republicans would be somebody you might agree with them on. How will you listen to people who have varying views than you?
Well, let me first say that my wife and I don't agree on everything, and I love her dearly, okay? So it starts right there, and I've been married for 34 years. So having a marriage that long and a family as good as I have, because you learn to communicate. Every relationship is about communication, whether it's in business, whether it's in your family life, or whether it's in government. And that's really what we need to focus on. And I know Mark can't answer this, but I know he said on his show that you seem to do a good job listening and doing what people want to do. And that's what I do. I worked with Moms Demand Action last year. In fact, my opponent made reference to that before. Might not, even though some of those people had fundraisers for my opponent last year in their home, I still sat down, I still worked, and I still got stuff done that made sense, okay? That's how I behave. That's how I behaved in my family life, my volunteer life. That's how I behaved in business. And that's how I behave as a member of Pennsylvania's General Assembly. Past performance is a solid indicator of future behavior. And my past performance is, as witnessed by people that have known me for years, is that I say what I mean what I say, I do what I'm going to do. It's about results when it comes to me working for people. It's not about rhetoric. It's not about any of that other stuff other than seeing what we can do to accomplish things to make lives better for the families of Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Keller. Mr. Friedenberg.
Yeah, thank you, Fred, for highlighting that the donors to my campaign are all individuals. I don't take a dime of corporate PAC money. But to answer the question, it really starts with looking at our shared humanity. I have another person in my family that I disagree with politically on many issues is my father. I've known him for 35 years because that's how long I've been alive. I would consider him to be a climate science denier. That's one issue that we disagree on pretty vehemently. But nevertheless, the roof of the house where I grew up is now covered in 40 solar panels because he saw that he was going to very quickly get a return on his investment and has, in fact, gotten it. So we ended up in the same place. I think it's great that he's got the panels. It's great that he's saving money. I think it's also great that he's helping to combat man-made climate change. There are a lot of issues where it's more about the rhetoric or the spin that we put on it, but the more that you talk to people, the more that you open up your heart to them, the more that you're willing to look for that shared humanity, you find that there's a lot more that we agree on than you might think.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, we're running out of time, and it's time to move on now to the closing statements. And so the first to make the closing statement will be Mr. Friedenberg.
I hear from voters all the time that we are falling short of our goal of leaving the world in a better place than we found it, that not everyone gets the same opportunities, and how we need government involvement in fixing the problems we all face. No one has ever been able to make it as one individual alone against the world. I recently heard a story about a young woman who graduated from Wellsboro High. She got a scholarship to Pitt Bradford for their pre-veterinary program. Within a year, though, she had dropped out of school and was working a retail job back in Tioga County. Why? Because she wasn't prepared. She didn't have broadband access at her home or at her school, and that left her less prepared than her peers for modern learning. This was not a lazy or unintelligent woman. We failed her because we didn't invest in her education and left it to the big businesses like Comcast to solve the problem. I know how you feel. We all feel the grind. Some of us feel like we are being ground to dust by a system that was not built to help us succeed. But we can do better. It won't happen by following the same tired formulas that lets corporations stop paying taxes, offshore our jobs, and pollute our environment. But what will work is investing in building infrastructure to create jobs and get us high-speed internet. We guarantee access to Medicare for those who want to buy into the program, and we protect Social Security so that hardworking Americans are able to retire with dignity. These programs made America the strongest country in the world and gave working Americans a ladder to success. But career politicians like my opponent forget where they came from. Instead, they pull the ladder up and tell us that it's our fault that our jobs got offshored. So join me in taking back our government from career Harrisburg and Washington types. Join me in fighting for working class values. I'm Mark Friedenberg. I'm running for Congress, and I'm asking for your vote on May 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friedenberg. And Mr. Keller, you get the final word.
Thank you. As mentioned earlier, I'm running for Congress because I want to make sure the American dream that I realized remains alive and well for generations to come. That's a dream that was laid out by our forefathers and paid for by every generation of veterans since. And we need to take care of our veterans. And we need to make sure that we're not confiscating money. Whoever controls more of your money controls more of your actions. I believe you should control more of your money. My opponent believes he should raise taxes on the middle class so they pay their fair share. It's on his own website. That's a stark difference in our campaign. The other thing I want to point out is, talking about bringing jobs back, President Trump has done that. Lowest unemployment rates in generations. We've done that here in Pennsylvania. We just got revenue numbers that we were $800 million above revenue estimate so far this year. That's because I worked with my colleagues, and yes, they were Republicans, to make sure that Governor Wolf didn't reach more deeply into their pockets to confiscate their money. And now more people are participating in Pennsylvania in the workforce. We're getting more revenue in, and simply by controlling more things of how your government defines your life and controls your life with things like my opponent said. He was excited about campaigning on the Green New Deal and Medicare for All. That would cost, the Green New Deal would cost every Pennsylvania family $600,000. We can't afford to send Mark Friedenberg to Congress. And when you talk about Social Security, I was very clear on that. You've earned it. It's your money. You paid the taxes on it. Healthcare, absolutely. Cover pre-existing conditions first. Then you look at transparency and competition. This campaign is about results and not rhetoric. I have delivered consistently over my entire career, public and private, in results. I would appreciate your vote on May 21st.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Well, that concludes this debate between the candidates for the 12th Congressional District seat in the U.S. House. Thanks to Mr. Friedenberg and Mr. Keller for participating, and thanks to our panel. We hope you found this program informative and useful as you prepare to vote on May 21st. This debate will be available on demand online at WVIA.org. I'm Larry Voitko. Thanks for watching, and good night.